evening, everybody. Thank you for joining me on Between the Covers. My name is Bradley Shaw, and tonight I'm talking to Tansy Boggon, author of the children's book, Superheroes on My Plate. Good evening, Tansy. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Thank you for joining us, and please do tell everybody listening and watching what this wonderful children's book is and what are they going to expect?
So Superheroes on Your Plate is a book where sort of food characters compete with one another as to who's the healthiest, best food on the plate. So it's sort of really fun, and there's lots of sort of jokes and a little bit of nutritional information in there as well. So it's sort of like a fun way to get a little bit of nutritional messages across to children.
Yeah. Good. And was it hard to construct a foodie book for kids, but also making it enjoyable, because that's always a challenge for kids with food?
I think it was relatively easy to do because I didn't really come with an intention to write a nutrition message book. I think other books that I've tried, I've read, or I've looked at sort of comparable titles, and you can feel a little bit of trying to get across a nutrition message. But the books sort of came to me more from the food, as the food being like fun characters and sort of getting into who their personas, I suppose. And the nutrition messages sort of came through that rather than being forced. Like, I didn't write it from this intention of like, I want to get across these 6 messages. It just sort of happened from the characters competing with each other and saying, I've got more heart healthy fats than you, but I've got less sugar, and so it was probably more focused on the characters. And I definitely wrote it more for fun. Like it was, I had no intention of writing a children's book at all. What actually happened was I write a blog, and I had a bit of a list that I was forming of foods that some diets say are healthy, and then another diet will say is unhealthy, and whether we're talking about carbohydrates, or we're talking about different fruits, or we're talking about high protein or low protein, or there's diets that demonize legumes, for example, and other diets are saying it's good. So we've got so much conflicting information around food, and I think diets make that, it's very popular to put foods against each other as if there's some miracle food out there, this perfect single food for us to eat, and that's sort of where the idea came from, is this idea of the foods competing with each other and trying to prove that they're better than one another.
And it's great, it's good, because like it even helps, I feel it helps parents, because I'm a little ignorant when it comes to foods as well. Like I grew up with 3 veg and steak. I didn't really get a lot of nutritional information, like it wasn't there when I was young, and as I grew older, of course, I learned more about food, but having to feed children and having to look after and nurture children now in a different world, parents need to know that information more so too, and it's great that this actually gives kids and parents the engagement of knowing and identifying in fun ways that these foods have these elements without being preached to. So with that in mind, I also have to wonder, how did you, out of all the plethora of foods, pick the superheroes? Like, how did you shortlist this category of food you selected? I know we've got avocados and olives, and somehow we have sardines in there as well. We have steak, and we have cheese, and we have all these things. But I like the fact you've left them individual as well. But how did you pick them? How did you grab them? As you said, your identities. How did you create them?
Yeah, I think that just sort of came to me, was just there was probably a few foods that I had on that list that are healthy or not healthy, and then it was probably thinking about foods that would present well. Like I was like, well, I can't really put chicken in the book, because like, how do you illustrate a chicken? And like I don't know, like it was just a weird character name to be like talking about chicken and that we're eating chicken. So somehow I think it was just thinking about what foods would look good in illustrations, then obviously looking at like food groups, and just, I don't know, like somehow there's like characteristics of those foods as well. So it was a little bit of that. And then I suppose it was the actions I was trying to get the foods to do, like rolling in or squishing up or squirting. So it was sort of like a little bit of that as well, the characteristics of those foods. But it's interesting what you asked before about parents, because I think when I wrote the book, I was actually initially just thinking of adults. Like I was thinking more like a joke book for adults. And I think there's a big emphasis on educating adults as well. Like I think there's actually nutritional concepts in there that are quite advanced, really. Like, like for example, that you can get more iron out of a chickpea when you eat it with a tomato. And a child might not necessarily get that, and an adult may not even know that. So it's like a way for, you know, they don't necessarily need to go into that if they don't want to, but it's a way for educators to potentially start a bit of a conversation of how combining different foods and eating a variety of different foods is what we need to be healthy and to optimize the uptake of nutrients from the food we eat. And
it's only simple stuff too. It doesn't have to be a complex educational nutritional list of things. It's just stuff that, like you say, just merit a little bit of extra knowledge that parents can use and go, oh wow, you know, okay, we can put that in the meal and it's not going to be harmful, it's going to be good. So that's great. And you know, so yeah, I agree. Parents, there's so much information out there, misinformation out there as well on diets, and it's crazy. And I think if kids get a base understanding of food groups or food things, that's great. They can learn them. So with that in mind, who or what was your favorite hero in the story?
Oh, my favorite.
I mean, you had so many great characters. Who really stood out for you to say, you know what, I really love this guy? I mean, hope he wins.
I think I really like Green Bean. He's like so excited all the time, and it's great with the illustration on the cover that Green Bean, a really cute character. And yes, that's probably one of my favourite ones. And then Brown Rice was another one that I really liked, but it's a little bit of their sort of behaviours and you know, that idea of brown rice steaming in onto the plate and
I feel sorry. My empathy goes out to olive oil. I mean, the poor guy's stuck in a jar. You know, you see these eyeballs looking out of a jar going, help me, help me. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
He'll be freed in the book though. He gets splashed everywhere. So
I like the poor olive oil. He's just stuck in a bottle. So that's funny. So it's interesting when you wrote the book, you didn't actually name them. You didn't give them like, you know, amazing avocado or Barry banana or, you know, Ollie olive. So did you do that intentionally? You just kept them as the vegetable, fruit or meat that they were?
Yeah, like I haven't worked like a lot with children as a nutritionist, but I feel like there's a lot of stuff where it's calling things names and like having, you know, rockets and alien foods and things like that in terms of encouraging children to eat food. But I don't know, I just wanted them to be themselves. Like it's orange is an orange. And, you know, like I talk about the food groups as if they're a character, like vegetables is a character with a capital V, you know. So I was sort of thinking of them just as themselves.
And being them.
You know, really embracing an orange as an orange rather than thinking of it as, you know, like some Mars rock that we go to eat or whatever.
Yeah, and it's interesting too that the kids get to pick or can play with the idea of who's the best superhero, you know, so there's that element of their perception or their interpretation of the food value, which I like the way you did that. You built that into the story as well. You're not preaching to them as who's the best. You're letting them have a feel of a choice of it, which is great. So well done.
And I suppose that's pretty much the intention of the book really is, in the end, was like encouraging children to invite other foods to the plate and, you know, like that inviting and experimenting and trying and being sort of curious. So that was definitely very intentional. And I think something that I love the way the book ends. I think it's a really nice way for a parent or a teacher to then work with children and ask them, like, who would you like to invite to the plate, or who could we invite to the plate, and doing activities.
And do you think there'll be a level of disappointment that the kids will find that, you know, their favorite food isn't actually part of the superhero nomination? You know, like one kid likes artichokes. He's like, where's my artichoke? You know, what's going on? Where's, you know, I will give you credit though. You did put the kiwi fruit in there. That's a good thing for, you know, it's got to keep true to the nation. I like that.
Yeah, there was a little bit of like nationality, like not, I wasn't thinking nationality, but it was that idea, you know, avocado's the bloke. He was the Aussie in the book, and got the kiwi. Yeah, I think there probably will be like, where's my, you know, my favorite food, my eggplant or whatever it is you like. And I suppose it is that idea. You can bring the eggplant to the plate now, like that's
good. I mean, now it's nice. And is there any more to come in the series? Any more books that you're working on that you want to evolve with the same fun, engaging messages, or what's your future of children's books?
Yes, no, there's a few more in the pipeline, and all with the same sort of idea of getting on the plate, like foods. I suppose my concept is like, if you're a food, the place to be is on a plate. You know, that's your destiny. Is
it's better than on the floor. I mean, really.
Yeah. Yeah, that's where you're aiming to go, and that's sort of where you are in all your glory as a food. And so all my books sort of have this idea of coming onto the plate, and finding your place on the plate. So the future books all have nutrition messages in there, but there's also messages of belonging and self-worth and diversity and other things as well. But all, you know, that's food is the character, and as you say, there's no names. It's, you know, it's just the food.
Oh, that's good. It's good. So you said you didn't write a lot of children's, but you've written books before. You've got other books in the market. You're published. You've done things before with it. So did you find writing children's books harder, differently to what you've known it for in your writing?
I think there's just a lot of joy in writing a children's book. Like, for me, it still requires the same level of focus and dedication. So generally an idea will come and maybe a few lines. And then I sit on that for a while, let it stew, and then I definitely need to then sit down for a concentrated amount of time, like I would writing something else, and just get it out. Because I think, you know, an idea can be floating around your head for a long time, and then it's figuring out how the story flows and creating that story. And then I do quite a bit of research as well, like with food puns or just sort of bringing some of that in. And sometimes you do a little bit of research on something and a word sticks out. You know, like, that would be really a good word to use in the book. So there's a little bit of research in there as well.
Good on you. No, that's good. And did it take you long to do all that research, do all that planning? Like, did it take you long to actually put it together once you started?
No, not at all. Like, it's it pretty much came to me in one weekend, and then I sort of just sit on it, then come back and edit it. So probably take like most of my children's book will take about a month to write, with a sort of a brainstorming phase, and then maybe a 2-week research phase, and just letting it marinate in my brain, and then sit down, write it, and then, you know, edit it a week later. So it's not too long a process, but it's definitely takes a little bit of time. Did you write it to publish it? Like, because when you wrote it as a children's book, did you see and visualize the animation, the color, the characters in your mind, of the style you wanted the book to become? Or did you want to publish it as well? Like a lot of writers or people just draft ideas a lot, but never really do anything. Was this in a book that you recognized? You thought, you know, this could publish, this could be good? I started writing it without any intention of publishing it. It was just an idea that I thought would be fun, and I thought, you know, I could publish it on my blog, or I could do it as like a little cartoon type thing. So I definitely had the characters in my mind and the idea of illustrating them, but I wasn't really thinking about publishing at that time. And then I actually wrote it about the time that I was launching my self-help book, and so I sort of just put it aside, and it wasn't a priority. And so it's probably 6 months later did I come back to it and go, that's actually a really entertaining book. I should see what happens with this. And it probably took me another year nearly to actually go out there and pursue publication. I suppose I'd looked into self-publishing, and the idea of self-publishing a children's book is incredibly daunting, like finding an illustrator and knowing that they can illustrate a book well. All the marketing and distribution that's involved. So that's the other consideration for me. I really wanted it in schools and libraries, and so self-publishing just didn't seem like the right way to go. So I think that's why I sort of sat on it a while to think of what I could do.
How to do it. That's good. Yeah. So did you find, once you found a publisher, did you find the collaboration beneficial and helpful to see and visualize and bring the characters to life? Were you happy with the collaboration of the way the book came out?
Definitely. I think it's really good to have a team behind you that can see your vision and want to bring that to life for you, and has that vested interest. I think that's something that I was uncomfortable with self-publishing, because an illustrator doesn't necessarily have an interest in the success of your book. They're just producing an illustration, and if I don't really know what's going to market well, what people are going to like, what kids, how does it fit with what else is out there? So I think just having that in-depth understanding of children's books and the entire process was
a strategy. Having a strategy that helps you also understand what you can do and how to do it. That's good. I agree. It's important. And we've loved it. We've loved working on the book. And I love it too. So everybody watching this video, you have to rush out and grab Superheroes on your plate. I don't care how old you are. This book is so cool. It's available in all bookshops, Australia and New Zealand. By the way, I forgot to mention, Tansy is actually was our first New Zealand author, although it has historically been associated to Australia well. It's just that now she's in New Zealand, so we're branching out. So thank you, Tansy, for sharing your time and this book with the world. We're looking forward to the results and the success of it. It comes out in November, everybody, so it's a great Christmas present. Buy it at your local bookstores or online. And Tansy, thank you so much for joining us.
No worries, thank you.
So everybody, take care, stay safe, and thank you for joining us next time. I think next time we see Tansy again, she will be here for her first novel, which is coming out in 2022, but we'll keep you posted on that as well. Thank you, everyone. Good night, and talk to you soon.